I'm 72 years old and I avoid people. Not because I hate anyone, not because I'm angry, but because life taught me some hard lessons and I've learned to listen. You know, when you're younger, you're told to stay social, keep friends close, be part of the crowd. That's what they say. But no one tells you how heavy the weight of others can get when you're older. They don't prepare you for how much noise the world makes when all you want is peace. So today, I want to share with you 7 reasons why many folks in their 70s start to pull away. Why we begin to distance ourselves. Maybe you're in your 60s or early 70s. Maybe you're wondering why some of your friends have become quieter. Or maybe you're like me. You've already stepped back and you just want to know you're not alone. You're not. First, let me tell you what I've come to feel deep in my bones. People leave. That's reason number 1. They die, they move, they forget. And every time someone you love disappears, it chips a piece off your heart. By the time you're in your 70s, you've seen too many funerals. You've stood with your hands folded and your mouth dry as names are read and ashes scattered. I lost my best friend of 50 years last winter. One moment he was telling jokes, and the next I was reading his name in a little square in the paper. After a while, you just get tired of watching people go. So you build a little space around yourself. Not because you don't care, but because caring hurts. Then comes reason number 2. You start to feel invisible. It's a strange thing. When you hit a certain age, you stop being seen. People talk around you, past you. They call you sir or ma'am, but don't ask what you think. The world moves fast, and you're just in the way. I used to be a teacher. People listened to me. Now I open my mouth and feel the air shift like I've said something wrong. When you feel like your voice doesn't matter anymore, you stop using it. And when you stop using it, people stop expecting it. So you learn to enjoy the quiet. At least the silence doesn't interrupt. Number 3 is exhaustion. Real exhaustion. Not the kind you get after mowing the lawn or chasing kids. I'm talking about soul tired. Social gatherings feel like work. Small talk feels fake. Smiling when you don't feel like smiling becomes a job you didn't apply for. I used to go to church picnics and neighborhood dinners. Now I sit on my porch with a cup of tea and listen to the birds. No one asks me how I'm doing, and I'm grateful for that. There's a peace in not having to explain why you're tired, why you want to be alone. It's not depression. It's not sadness. It's just enough. Now let me tell you about reason number 4. Trust gets harder. When you're young, you trust easily. You give people the benefit of the doubt. You assume good intentions. But after 7 decades of life, you've been lied to, taken advantage of, betrayed. Not once or twice, many times. You start to read between the lines. You spot the fake smiles and empty words. And you think to yourself, why bother? So instead of putting yourself out there again, you pull back. You keep your circle small. Sometimes that circle is just you. And that's okay. That's safe. Then there's reason number 5. Time feels different. It becomes more precious. You realize you have less of it. When you're young, you waste hours on nonsense, arguments, gossip, people who drain you. But in your 70s, you become greedy with time. You want to spend it doing what matters, sitting with your memories, listening to the wind, holding your grandchild's hand, not arguing about politics or pretending to laugh at something that isn't funny. That's the truth. You stop showing up to things because those things don't bring you peace. And peace is the only thing worth chasing at this age. Reason number 6 is physical. Your body changes. Everything takes more effort. Hearing becomes harder. So does walking, standing for too long. Even sitting in uncomfortable chairs becomes a negotiation. Crowds become stressful. Noise hurts your ears. And suddenly the idea of going out to a party or sitting in a loud restaurant feels like a punishment, not a pleasure. You want comfort. You want predictability. So you avoid places and people that demand too much from you. Not because you're bitter, but because you know your limits, and you've earned the right to honor them. Now let me give you the 7th reason, the most personal one. You start to enjoy your own company. Truly, you begin to find joy in solitude. You notice the way the sunlight falls through your window at 4 in the afternoon. You watch squirrels chase each other across the yard and laugh out loud with no one around to hear you. You remember things you thought you had forgotten. Your mother's voice, the smell of your childhood kitchen, the sound of rain on a tin roof. These moments fill you in ways conversations never could. You realize that being alone doesn't mean being lonely. It means being present with yourself, with your memories, with your thoughts. I know some people worry when their elders pull back. They think we're giving up, but we're not. We're choosing. We've spent a lifetime giving to children, to spouses, to jobs, to communities. Now finally we get to give something to ourselves. Silence, space, freedom. You may see it as distance, but we see it as homecoming. Returning to who we were before the world told us who to be. Now, I'm not saying all older folks feel this way. Some still love the noise, the parties, the gatherings, and that's fine. But for many of us, the pull inward is strong. It's not fear, it's not anger, it's peace, earned peace. So if you're younger and reading this, don't take it personally. If your father doesn't call much, if your grandmother skips Thanksgiving, if your old neighbor stops waving, it's not rejection, it's release. Let them be. Love them quietly, give them room. And if you're like me, if you're in your 70s and finding that solitude feels sweeter than conversation, know this: you're not broken, you're wise. You've learned what matters, you've let go of the noise, and that takes strength. The kind of strength that doesn't shout, it just sits, breathes, listens. I'm 72, and I avoid people. Not because I'm cold, but because I'm full of memories, full of lessons, full of moments I want to sit with a little longer. Life gets quiet, and in that quiet, you finally hear yourself again. That voice you lost along the way, that little whisper that says, you've done enough. Now rest. Now let's clear some common questions. What are the unseen costs of constantly having to explain yourself? And how does silence become a form of self-care? I'm 72, and I'll tell you right now, one of the heaviest burdens I've carried in this life wasn't a job or a mortgage or even grief. It was the quiet, nagging weight of always having to explain myself. You might not think much of it when you're younger. You defend your choices, you tell your side, you try to make people understand where you're coming from. It seems natural, but after decades of doing it, something shifts inside you. It's like standing in a windstorm, shouting into it, hoping someone hears you. Eventually, your voice goes hoarse, and you start to wonder why you're shouting in the first place. When I was younger, I felt this constant need to justify how I lived, why I took the job I did, why I stayed in the marriage even when it was hard, why I didn't move to a bigger city or climb higher or make more money. People always had opinions, and I always felt like I had to answer to them. Later, as I got older, the questions didn't stop. They just changed. Why don't you come out more? Why are you so quiet these days? Why don't you travel more now that you're retired? Why are you alone so often? Each one felt like a small poke, a reminder that who I was didn't quite match what others expected me to be. Let me tell you, explaining yourself over and over chips away at something sacred. It's not about pride, it's about peace. Every time you try to make someone see your truth, and they still don't, a little piece of you pulls back, not out of spite, but out of self-preservation. You start to realize that some things you feel are too deep to explain. Some choices were made not in words, but in moments no one else saw. Like when I stopped going to family barbecues. They were loud, always filled with noise and chatter and kids running wild. I loved them once. But then the noise got sharper. My hearing got worse. My patience grew thin. My need for quiet grew louder. So I stayed home. And suddenly I had to explain myself. Was I angry? Was I sick? Was I mad at someone? But saying that never felt like enough. And after the 10th time trying to explain it, I stopped. Because here's the truth. Not everyone deserves an explanation. Not everyone wants to understand. Some just want to be right about you. They want to put your life into their little box and close the lid. And when you don't fit, they shake the box and ask you why. That gets exhausting. And when you've lived long enough, you learn to protect your energy like it's gold, because it is. So I started practicing silence. At first it felt strange, like I was being rude, like I was withholding something. But over time, it started to feel like a warm blanket. Silence gave me room to breathe. It gave me space to feel what I was feeling without editing myself, without trying to package my life in a way someone else could approve of. I realized that silence wasn't empty. It was full of everything I didn't need to explain anymore. It was full of strength. You know, when you're younger, silence is often seen as weakness, like you've got nothing to say. But when you're older, silence becomes your sanctuary. It's where you go to remember who you are when no one's watching. It's where the noise of judgment fades and your own voice becomes clear again. I sit in my garden now, sometimes for hours. I don't bring my phone. I don't bring a book. I just sit. And in that silence, I feel whole. There's a cost to always explaining. It's not just the words, it's the anxiety, the second guessing, the emotional labor of trying to convince someone that your heart is good, that your intentions are pure, that your quietness is not rejection, that your solitude is not loneliness, that your stillness is not giving up. People don't always hear that, but in silence, I don't need to prove it. I remember once a woman I knew for years asked me why I never remarried after my wife passed. I looked at her and smiled, but I didn't answer. Not because I was hiding anything, but because the real answer was made of too many small, sacred pieces. Pieces I didn't know anyone. I had loved. I had lost. I had found peace. That was mine. And no amount of explaining would make someone else feel what I felt in those quiet nights when her absence filled the room like perfume. Silence, my friend, is not emptiness. It is a full and living thing. It is a place we create when the world gets too loud and too curious. It is a choice, a boundary, a gift. When you're 72, you've spent your life talking, defending, proving, and you realize you don't have to do that anymore. You've earned your silence. You've earned the right to just be. And if someone asks, why don't you come around as much? I just smile now. Maybe I nod. Maybe I say, I'm good right where I am. And if they press, I let the silence hang in the air like a gentle breeze. Because if they truly cared, they wouldn't need more than that. They'd see the peace in my eyes. They'd feel the calm in my stillness. And they'd understand. Or they wouldn't. And either way, I've stopped trying to explain. That's the freedom silence gives you. It protects your peace. It shields your spirit. It holds space for all the parts of your life that are too deep for words. So, yes, the cost of constantly having to explain yourself is steep. It wears you down in ways that no one can see. But the gift of silence, that's something you only come to treasure when you've lived long enough to know its worth. How do elders find connection in different ways? Through memories, quiet observation, or simple routines outside of traditional social settings? At 72, I can tell you that connection changes. It shifts shape like the seasons. When you're younger, connection is loud. It's built in crowded rooms and fast phone calls. It lives in late-night laughter and shoulder-to-shoulder gatherings. But when you get older, something changes. The noise no longer feeds you. The chaos no longer comforts you. You begin to find connection in quieter places, in stillness, in memory, in the rhythm of your days. It's not that we stop needing people. It's that we start finding people in different ways, ways the world often overlooks. For me, connection has grown quieter, but deeper. I sit on my porch most mornings with a cup of coffee in hand. Same mug, same spot. I listen to the birds sing their morning songs and watch the light shift through the trees. That routine, simple as it is, feels like a handshake with the world. It tells me I'm still here, still part of the rhythm. I feel the day acknowledge me, like an old friend nodding hello. That's connection. It's not loud. It's not a text message or a dinner party. It's presence, and it fills me. Memories are another place where I meet people I've lost, sometimes clearer than the people still around. I can sit at my kitchen table and hear my mother's voice, soft and steady as she stirred the pot of soup we always had on Sundays. I can smell my father's aftershave when I open a drawer that's been closed too long. These aren't ghosts, they're echoes, and they remind me I've loved and been loved. That matters. That connects me not just to them, but to the person I was with them. I find parts of myself in those memories that I thought I'd forgotten. When you've lived as long as I have, the past isn't behind you. It walks beside you. And some days it's the best company you've got. I also find connection in the small things I do every day. Routines become like old friends. My hands know how to fold the laundry just the way my wife used to. I water the garden the same way she showed me. I talk to the plants too, just like she did. It might seem silly to someone else, but to me, it's a conversation. It's a thread that keeps me tied to her, to who we were, to the life we built. Some people find comfort in crowds. I find it in my tomato plants, in the steady rhythm of pruning and watering and watching life grow, even now. Then there's observation. I've learned to really see the world, not glance at it, not rush through it, but see it. I watch a young couple hold hands at the park and feel hope rise in me. I see a toddler stumble, then laugh, and I remember my own son doing the same. I nod at the old man who walks past my porch every evening at 5 o'clock sharp. We don't speak, but in that nod, there's respect, recognition, maybe even a kind of friendship. When you pay attention, you start to feel connected to people you never even meet. Their stories brush up against yours in quiet ways. Animals, too, have become companions in this later season of life. I've got a cat that adopted me a few years back. He showed up one day and never left. Doesn't ask for much. Just a little food and a warm spot to sleep. But he follows me around the garden like he knows me. Like we've got some unspoken agreement, and maybe we do. Sometimes I think animals understand our silences better than people do. They don't need you to explain why you're quiet or why you're tired. They just sit with you. And in that sitting, you feel understood. There's also connection in the stories we tell ourselves. I write in a little notebook most evenings. Nothing fancy, just a few lines about the day, what I saw, what I felt, who I thought about. It's not for anyone else to read. But when I write it down, it's like I'm in conversation with myself, with the parts of me that still wonder, still ache, still laugh. That notebook holds my truth, my voice. And when the world feels too far away, I find connection in those pages. A reminder that I still matter, that my story is still unfolding, even slowly. And yes, sometimes connection still finds me in others. In a call from an old friend, in a grandchild's laugh, in a stranger who holds the door and smiles. But I don't chase it like I used to. I don't need it to come wrapped in noise and busyness. I've learned that real connection doesn't demand. It arrives gently, in stillness, in routine, in memory. Some people look at elders like we're disappearing, like we've retreated from life. But we haven't. We've just learned to meet life in a different way. We find it in the morning light on the floor, in the slow sip of a favorite tea, in the crackling of an old record. We don't always talk as much, but we listen more. We feel more. And in feeling, we connect. So if you're younger, don't worry when your parents or grandparents seem quiet. Don't think they've shut down. They're just tuning into something softer, something steadier. And if you're like me, somewhere in your 70s, know that you are not alone. That the quiet connections count just as much as the loud ones. That the way you remember, the way you observe, the way you honor your simple routines, that is love. That is belonging. Connection doesn't always need a handshake or a hug. Sometimes it looks like watering the same rose bush every morning. Sometimes it sounds like an old tune on the radio. Sometimes it's the warmth of sunlight on your face as you sit in silence and smile, remembering. And that, my friend, is enough. More than enough. What would happen if society began to honor solitude in elders as a natural, powerful part of aging, instead of treating it as a problem to fix? If society began to honor solitude in elders as a natural and powerful part of aging, instead of treating it as a problem to fix, I believe the world would change in ways many don't expect. I'm 72 now, and I've walked through loneliness, seen the stigma, felt the pressure to be more social, to be more involved, as if being quiet or alone meant I was broken or sad. But solitude isn't a wound. It's a refuge. It's a place where many of us find peace, clarity, and strength. If we stop trying to fix that solitude and instead embraced it, I think our elders, and honestly our whole society, would benefit in ways that go far beyond what a social calendar can offer. Most people see solitude as loneliness. They think it's a void that needs to be filled with chatter and company. But for many of us, solitude is the opposite of loneliness. It's a choice, a sanctuary. It's the time when we meet ourselves again, after a lifetime of rushing, of being caretakers, of losing parts of ourselves in the noise of the world. When I sit in silence, I'm not lonely, I'm present, I'm whole. If society acknowledged that instead of pushing elders to be constantly busy, I imagine we'd see a generation growing quieter, but richer, more centered, more at peace. What if instead of asking, "Why are you so withdrawn?" people asked, "What do you find in your solitude?" If doctors, families, and communities understood that solitude can be healing, maybe they'd stop treating it like a symptom of depression or neglect. Instead, they'd create spaces that honor it, gardens to sit in, quiet corners in community centers, times when silence is welcomed rather than feared. Elders could spend time reflecting, creating, simply being. And that stillness would ripple outwards, teaching younger generations the value of slowing down, of listening, of sitting with themselves. I've seen how the constant push to be active can backfire. When someone tells me I should be joining clubs or going to events just because I'm older, it feels like they don't see me, like they're treating me as a project to be managed, rather than a person with my own rhythms and needs. Solitude lets me set my own pace. It lets me honor the years I've lived and the lessons I've learned. If society embraced that, we'd stop measuring worth by how busy or visible someone is. We'd start measuring it by the depth of their inner life, by their contentment, by their wisdom. Imagine communities built around this understanding. Places where elders can come together not because they're told to, but because they want to. Where silence isn't awkward but sacred. Where conversation flows naturally and softly, not forced or rushed. Where it's okay to sit quietly with a neighbor, to share a smile without words, to read or paint, or just watch the world go by without feeling guilty. This kind of honoring would change how we view aging itself. Instead of fearing it as a decline, we'd see it as a time of gathering strength and insight. A season of calm and reflection, not a problem to solve. Solitude also gives us the space to process grief and loss in our own way. When you lose a spouse or a close friend, the world suddenly feels much bigger and emptier. There's no quick fix for that. You can't just throw a party and make it go away. But in solitude, we find the room to hold our sadness without being overwhelmed by it. We can remember without feeling rushed. We can cry, smile, and heal at our own pace. If society respected this process instead of pushing elders to move on or stay busy, grief might become less lonely and more understood. Honoring solitude would also invite elders to share their wisdom in new ways. When we're not forced into noisy social settings, we often find quieter forms of connection that are just as meaningful. Writing letters, telling stories to attentive listeners, creating art or music in private moments. These forms of expression carry a depth that busy gatherings sometimes miss. They allow elders to give without feeling drained, to pass on what they know in ways that feel right for them. And when younger people learn to appreciate these quieter gifts, it creates a richer, more diverse sense of community. There's also freedom in solitude, freedom from judgment, freedom from the constant demands to perform or please. When I'm alone, I don't have to explain why I'm tired or why I don't want to go out. I don't have to wear a mask or pretend everything's fine. I can be exactly who I am, without apology. If society started to see this freedom as a gift rather than a problem, elders might feel more empowered to live authentically. They'd feel less pressure to conform to expectations that don't fit their lives anymore. We might also see better mental health if solitude were honored. There's a kind of peace that comes from embracing quiet, from letting the mind rest from constant stimulation. Elders often face cognitive overload from trying to keep up with fast-changing technology and social trends. Solitude offers a break. It's a chance to recharge, to connect with one's thoughts and memories, to find stillness in a noisy world. If this were recognized as healthy instead of unhealthy, we might reduce anxiety and depression in older populations simply by giving them permission to be alone without shame. I've noticed something else too. When I honor my solitude, I become more patient with others. I'm less reactive. I listen more deeply. It's like the quiet within me creates space for kindness and understanding outside. If society embraced solitude, it might not just help elders. It might teach everyone to slow down, to be more thoughtful, to appreciate the moments between words and actions. It could bring a kind of peace to communities that are often too rushed and noisy. Of course, solitude shouldn't mean isolation. No one benefits from feeling cut off or forgotten. But there's a difference between isolation and chosen solitude. If society made that distinction clear, we'd stop confusing the two. We'd create ways to support elders who want connection without forcing it upon those who seek solitude. We'd recognize that sometimes the best gift we can give is space. Space to think, space to feel, space to just be. If this change happened, I believe elders would feel more respected, more seen, more free. We'd stop trying to squeeze them into a mold of what aging should look like. We'd accept the quiet moments as much as the lively ones. We'd honor the whole person, not just their social calendar. And in doing so, we'd open the door to a richer, more compassionate understanding of what it means to grow old. At 72, I'm grateful for the solitude I've found. It's not always easy. Sometimes the silence feels heavy, but more often, it feels like coming home. And I hope one day the world will see that coming home isn't something to fix. It's something to celebrate. If you liked today's discussion, don't forget to like the video. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon to stay updated with every video we release. And yes, don't forget to share your experiences and thoughts in the comments. Every comment is special to us. Your feedback helps us improve further. We'll continue to meet you in every new video on this channel. So until next time, take care.